Sup YouTube, this is the chemist guy, and I know I'm back after I guess 4 days, not even 4 days. So, as I talked about in the last video, I'm just doing this as and when I can find the time. And to give you all a heads up, this is the very last video before we start with the actual Maxwell's equations, right? So, this is the last prerequisite video in a sense. So I thought, why not get this over with? So last time we began discussing the physical quantities which are involved in the Maxwell's equations, and as I said, there are 8 quantities involved. And in the last video we discussed the fields, the electric and the magnetic fields, and we discussed the physical constants, the permittivity and the permeability. So today my aim is to just complete the remaining 4 quantities: the electric flux density, magnetic flux density, electric charge density, and the electric current density. Great. So these random notes, I think viewers for the first time will think these are random notes. So if you see the previous video, you will get a much clearer understanding of what all this stuff is. This is basically a recap. This is for the electric field, magnetic field, this is for permittivity and permeability. So let's begin with the very first quantity for the day, and that is the electric flux density. Okay guys, so the electric flux density, as complicated as its name sounds, it isn't really complicated, and a very simple formula is basically D is equal to epsilon times E. Okay, so it is basically the permittivity of the medium times the electric field in the given medium, right? And if you recall, the electric field is equal to force per unit charge, right, at a distance r from the charge which has a value q or q1. Suppose I'm taking a charge of value q1, then the electric field at a distance r is going to be q1 upon 4 pi epsilon r square at a distance r, right? And epsilon, the permittivity of the medium, right? Now the interesting thing is, if I need to calculate the electric flux density for this field at this point, I get D is equal to epsilon times E. So the epsilons get cancelled out, so this equation becomes Q1 upon 4 pi r square. Okay, and this is what is very interesting about the electric flux density, is that it is very much similar to the electric field, but it is independent of the medium. Yes, whatever medium you take, be it vacuum, be it water, be it any kind of metal, if you have a single charge q1, the flux density at a point r anywhere around this charge is going to be the same in all of those mediums. The field may be different, but the flux density is going to be the same. Yes, and one thing to note about the flux density, again, this D field, it's going to be a vector field. Yes, so at every point in space it is going to have a magnitude, it is going to have a direction. Now one thing, if you know geometry, you will see that this 4 pi r square is basically the formula for the surface area of a sphere, right? So this leads to another interpretation of flux density, as suppose you have a charge q1, okay, and I take it as the center of a sphere with a radius r. Okay, so if I draw a sphere of radius r around this, I don't really know how to draw a sphere. Okay, so this will be my best approximation. Okay, somewhat like this. Okay, then the electric flux density here is going to be charge upon surface area of the sphere. Okay, so it's basically charge per unit surface area, right? So as you can see, it is charge per area, so its units are also going to be pretty simple. They are going to be coulomb per square meter. Yes, so that's basically all that you need to know about electric flux densities. We'll explore it in a bit more details when we do Maxwell's first equation, right, Gauss's law. We'll understand it in a bit more detail, but for now this is all the prerequisites. So we move on to the magnetic flux density. Okay guys, so as in the last video I said that there is a lot of analogy between the electric and magnetic fields. A lot of the equations are pretty similar. Okay, so just like we found an equation for the electric flux density that it is epsilon times E, I'm pretty sure you can guess that an exact analogy is to be found in the magnetic flux density, and it is going to be B. The symbol for magnetic flux density is equal to mu times H, where mu is the permeability of the given medium and H is the magnetic field in the medium. Yes, and the unit of magnetic flux density is going to be, it's something new. It is going to be Weber per square meter. Okay, this stands for Webers. Okay, yes, and 1 Weber is basically 1 volt second, but I won't get into what it is. And this unit is also known as the Tesla. Okay, so it is Tesla. Yeah, so basically 1 Tesla is 1 Weber per square meter. Yes, so we know that a particle with a charge q, okay, suppose we have a particle with a charge q and it is stationary and it is placed inside an electric field E. So we know that it is going to be experiencing a force which is going to be equal to F bar. Okay, the vector F bar is equal to q times E bar. Yes, we know that it's going to be experiencing a force. So something new here is that if we have a charged particle with a charge q and it is moving with a velocity v perpendicular to a B field. Yes, because the B field, again, it is a vector field. It is going to have a magnitude and direction everywhere in space. So if it is, this charge q is moving with a velocity, constant velocity v in a B field perpendicular to a B field, then also it is going to be experiencing a force which is proportional to the B field. Okay, so we can write a general equation and for that force as F bar is equal to q v bar cross B bar. Okay, so this is basically the cross product. Okay, so I'm not gonna go into the details of cross products of vectors, but it basically tells us that if this charge is traveling parallel to the B field, there is no force exerted due to the B field. So suppose I have a B field in the positive y direction. Yes, and if my charge is traveling parallel to it, okay, with a velocity v bar, the force is going to be 0. Okay, but if I have a similar magnetic field, B field, in the positive y direction, and if I have a charge which is traveling in the positive x direction, okay, then it is definitely going to be experiencing a force, and this force is going to be perpendicular to both this field and this field. So what we know is, now what is perpendicular to the x and the y axis? It is the z axis. So the force is either going to be coming out of the paper like this, or it is going to be into the paper. Okay, so that's going to be the direction. If it's a positive charge, it's going to be coming out. The force is pushing this particle in this direction. If it's a negative charge, it's pushing it in this direction, right? So now we come to a very interesting and a very important equation, and that is the Lorentz force equation. So what it does, it's basically tying these two forces together. Okay, and it basically just says that F bar is equal to Q, taking out common, it is E bar plus V bar cross B bar. Okay, this is a vector addition. Okay, it's not your regular algebraic addition. Yes, and we call this the Lorentz force equation. Okay, and this is a pretty big equation. It's of great importance, and it is one of the equations that might just participate in leading us to a theory of everything. Yes, it might seem pretty simple, but it has great importance. So to summarize, the magnetic flux density is somewhat analogous to the electric field. It can exert a force on a charged particle, right? But it's in a different way. Yes, so in general, people, the magnetic field H and the magnetic flux density B, it is used somewhat interchangeably, and they are basically related by the permeability, right? So B is equal to mu H. It's a simple relation, right? So with that we conclude the flux densities, and now we come to the last kind of physical quantities that we need to deal with, and those are the field sources. Okay, great. So guys, the first field source that we need to talk about is the electric charge density. So firstly, the symbol for electric charge density, as I said, I would discuss it. It is rho v. Right now, generally rho is used as it typically denotes the electric charge, and your subscript v, it's going to indicate that we are talking about volume charge density. Right, and this makes the units pretty clear. Charge is measured in coulomb, volume is measured in cubic meter, so its unit is going to be coulomb per cubic meter. Yes, pretty simple, right? And now this is also quite analogous to our mass density, right? We know what mass density is. Mass density is mass per unit volume. Similarly, electric charge density is going to be charge per unit volume. Okay, so simply if one basic difference is that mass density is always going to be positive. We can't have a negative mass density, right? But electric charge, because it can be both positive and negative, electric charge density is going to be, it can be either positive, it can be negative, or it can even be zero if there is no charge. So to understand it a bit more clearly, we'll just look at a very simple little example. Okay guys, so suppose I have a charge, okay, of say plus 2 coulomb. Yes, and it is evenly distributed on a sphere of radius say 7 meter. Okay, for ease I'm taking 7 meter because I'm approximating the value of pi here, of course, right? So I have a radius of 7 sphere of radius 7 meter. Okay, and there is a uniformly distributed charge of plus 2 coulomb on it. So what is my electric charge density on this sphere? So simple enough. First we need to calculate the volume of the sphere. It's going to be 4 by 3 pi r cube, right? So which is 4 by 3 into pi, I'm taking is 22 by 7, I'm sorry, and 7 cube is 343, right? So I cancel this out, this becomes 49. 4 into 22 into 49 is 4312 divided by 3, so that is going to be 4312 divided by 3, which is equal to 1437.33 cubic meter. Okay, so this is my volume. So now my charge density rho v, it's going to be q upon v, charge upon volume. So that is plus 2 coulomb upon 1437.33 cubic meter. Okay, it's going to be a pretty small value, 2 upon 1437.33. it's going to come to approximately equal to 0.0014 coulomb per cubic meter. Yes, so a simple example of how we can calculate electric charge density, right? This was pretty simple one, and this quantity itself is a very simple one. Yes, so that's pretty much all you need to know. And now we move on to our last physical quantity that we require to know, and which is the electric current density. Yes. Okay guys, so as we talked about in the last video, the electric current density, it is denoted by the symbol capital J. And we know electric current is measured in amperes, and 1 ampere is 1 coulomb per second. Yes, and current density, volume current density, yes, it is measured in the unit ampere per meter squared. Its units are going to be ampere per square meter. Yes, because current is flowing in a direction. Yes, and we are measuring area perpendicular to this direction. Yes, so it's basically, suppose we have a wire. Okay, it's got a cross sectional area, it's a cylindrical wire. Okay, cross sectional area A. Okay, and suppose a current of I is flowing through it. Yes, so my current density J is going to be simply I upon A. Yes, so a total, if the current density is not uniform, okay, so if the area is not uniform, suppose it's a wire like this, okay, it's a wire whose area is changing continuously, in that case we can integrate and we can say that I will be equal to integral of J ds, right, where S is the area, changing area. Yes, variable area. So total current, we can say it is a summation of the current density over the region where the current is flowing. Yes, so as a simple example, okay, suppose we have a wire with a radius say 10 centimeter, okay, and we have a total current I as say 3 amperes. Yes, so what will be our current density? So J will be I upon A will be pi r square, right? I upon pi r square, so that will be 3 amperes upon 10 centimeters 0.1, so 0.01. Yeah, so that comes to approximately, this will be 159. Yes, 159 ampere per square meter. Okay, so one thing to note here, that is for variable areas your current density is not constant, so we need to integrate, right? So that's pretty much all you need to know about current density. Yes, and yes, one extra thing, one little thing that's pretty interesting. Okay, so suppose you have a material medium, okay, and its conductivity is sigma. Okay, I'm pretty sure you know what conductivity is. If you have resistance is equal to rho A upon L, we know resistance of a wire is proportional to area and inversely proportional to I'm really sorry about that, it is rho L by A. Yes, so the resistance of a wire is proportional to the length of the wire, inversely proportional to the cross-sectional area of the wire. Now we know conductance is the inverse of resistance. Yes, 1 by R. Yes, and 1 by R we can write it as A upon rho L, right? Which we can write as 1 by rho times A by L, which we can write as sigma A by L, where sigma is the conductivity of the medium, and it follows that sigma is 1 upon rho, inverse of the resistivity, and the units of sigma is Siemens per meter. Okay, SIEMEN, Siemens per meter. Yes, meter. Okay, so if I have a material of electric conductivity which is given by sigma, then the current density can actually be related to the electric field, and we get an equation that says J is equal to sigma times E. And believe it or not, this is a pretty famous equation, and it is known as Ohm's law. Yes, so you probably might know from electric current that V is equal to IR is the regular Ohm's law that we are used to. Yes, so suppose if we just write this as I is equal to V by R, yes, and which I can also write as I is equal to 1 by R times V, right? And 1 by R I can write it as the conductance. Yes, conductance, 1 upon resistance is the conductance. Okay, now if I divide all of these by the surface area, what I'm going to get is I upon surface area is going to be J, conductance upon a cross-sectional area of the wire is the conductivity sigma, and voltage per unit area is nothing but the electric field. Yes, so we get another form of Ohm's law, and this is where Ohm's law from the circuits comes to. Yes, so this equation basically tells us that in a material which doesn't have any conductivity, I'm really sorry, a material which has a certain value of conductivity, a non-zero conductivity, an electric field is going to produce an electric current. Okay, this is a pretty useful result, and it's an alternative form of Ohm's law. Okay, so that's where I'm ending this video, and I'm really excited because next time we'll be starting with the actual Maxwell's equations. We'll begin with Maxwell's first equation, that is Gauss's law, and we'll talk about its implications, we'll talk about the math of the law. I'll try to simplify it as much as I can. So see you all next time. Thank you.